Want to know why so many of your favorite Miami restaurants are closing? As a broker who specializes in restaurants, usually I get 5 calls a day from restaurant owners who want to sell. But now I've been getting 15 to 20 calls a day. If I'm getting those calls, it's never good. So let me break it down for you. Restaurants that should have closed the last summer stayed open, over-leveraging themselves and waiting for the busy season. One thing we learned was the busy season never came this year. Even during Art Basel, which should be one of the best weeks of the year for restaurants to make money, was the worst performing Art Basel in 5 years.
That is Felix Bendersky, founder of F&B Hospitality Brokerage.
Good hair.
Good hair. Thank you. Oh, wait, him or me?
Oh, both of you. Your hair looks good, too.
Thank you. So that is a now viral video from January of this year in which Felix, who is a restaurant realtor, Roy is the best way to describe him. He basically brokers deals between landlords, property owners, and restaurateurs who want to open in the South Florida area. And so he predicted in January 15th to be precise, in this now viral video, that there was a restaurant Armageddon inevitable in 2024 in which, quote, everyone is going to close at exactly the same time in the next few months. And I got to tell you, I saw this video. I shared it on about January 15th because it honestly just rang true to me. You know what I always say about Miami? Miami is the place where truth is hate and lies are love. Where we don't have reality, we have realty. And this, to me, just sort of embodied that. This guy was the only truth teller, in my opinion, in Miami real estate. And I shared it. The thing exploded. And Felix started getting a lot of shit for it. Because, and not just shit for it from outside, shit from inside, meaning his own clients. This is not a guy that benefits from telling the truth about the Miami restaurant industry or the Miami real estate. And Felix is joining us now. Felix, here we are several months out. I want to talk a little bit about the shit that you got for this video. And were you right? You predicted a Miami restaurant Armageddon within a few months, and it has been a few months. So what was the fallout from your video, and where are we at now?
Fallout hasn't stopped. I think I took your place as the most hated person in Miami, based in my field and my industry. I don't think that I painted a very nice narrative for everybody trying to paint a beautiful picture of Miami and, the money coming in. But I don't think I was off either. I think that me and a couple of people in my office were actually just going through the numbers, and we counted 145 places that either have closed or are in the middle of closing since we shot that video January 15th. At the risk of stating the obvious, this is incredibly important and consequential, Roy, because Miami is a hospitality town. We run on tourism. I mean, there's a lot of people in this economy who live not just paycheck to paycheck, but tip jar to tip jar, who leave restaurants and nightclubs and food and beverage establishments and bars with the money from their shift that they need to live right now, to pay their rent, to feed and clothe and house their families in an increasingly outrageously unaffordable market down here. And Felix, though, in March of 2021, you were singing a different tune. You told the Daily Mail that business is booming in Miami, with restaurateurs fleeing New York during the shutdowns, and you were getting as many as 150 groups reaching out to you in just a matter of a couple months looking for space. Flash forward 3 years, Restaurant Armageddon, what happened?
So I think people are very confused when I use the words Restaurant Armageddon. If anything, I don't think that the number has stopped. I think the number's actually gone up. We actually get way more calls now. The problem is that the demand outweighs the inventory tremendously. So for everybody closing, you got 10 people ready to take their space, because everybody knows that to build in Miami and dealing with the permitting, it's just way easier and more likelihood of you opening if you took a second generation space,
as opposed to having to build something out from scratch. Why is that? Talk a little bit about the inability of entrepreneurs to come in and, they're spending a ton of money, it seems, but not really able to get an operation going successfully after that.
So you got to love our city. I think one of the major things that changed was in 2019, Department of Environmental, Durham, our favorite department in Miami, actually had passed a new grease trap code because according to them, we're all going to be underwater in the next 20, 30 years. So any restaurant opening after 2019 either needed to get their grease trap replaced or updated. And it's not a very big department. And the permitting on that, it's probably faster to build a skyscraper than to get a permit on that.
So I want to understand because if there's all this demand, there doesn't seem to be a lot of likelihood for success. This is already incredibly competitive industry. The success rate in the F&B business was already, even in the boom times, pretty low. A lot of these places are going to, to borrow a term, grand opening, grand closing, right? These places are going to come in and they're going to fail like a lot of the places before them. So what is going wrong? What is happening in the market right now where restaurants are just failing?
So I think there's several things to that. I think that number one, certain areas are over cannibalizing themselves. How many 10,000 square foot restaurants can we have in a 5-block radius where your average ticket price is going to be, $500 a couple or $1,000 a couple? There's not enough people or lack of as many people that were used to come in the last couple of years as there is now. A lot of things that people don't take into consideration is that Miami is still not a 12-month-a-year city. As much as we all want it to be, it's just not. The third thing is a lot of the out-of-towners that come in, they have the my baby is the prettiest baby mentality. You've never tried my pizza. You've never tried my pasta. And I think that a lot of developers and landlords kind of cater to their ego, and that's where the problems start.
So what are some of the worst cities or municipalities in Miami-Dade County to open an F&B spot, to open a restaurant for whatever reason, whether it's the corruption, dysfunction, just slow walking the process, too many steps in the process?
I think it's literally all of Miami-Dade. I think it's Miami and Miami Beach mostly. That's really the, city of Coral Gables and, city of Aventura, city of Sunny Isles, they kind of have their own municipalities. Things work different. But when it comes back to the grease trap and what Miami has for the code, you still have to wait the same exact time. So you have restaurants signing leases, thinking they're going to open in the next 6 months. 2 years later, they're still paying rent and they can't open. So right out the gate, the money that they had picked out for furniture, for good purveyors, for marketing, for supplies, now that's cut down. I mean, we know restaurants that, there's one actually that I could think of right now, Sunset Harbor. They put $1.7 million into their space. They're never going to open.
What?
Yeah. They do a deal with the landlord. The landlord gives them 6 months. A year and a half later, they're paying $25,000, $30,000 a month in rent. At a certain period of time, their investors are going to pull the cord, because they can't just keep dumping money into a project that they don't know when it's going to open. So then what do the landlords do? They take the keys back gladly. They got a brand new built out space and, they'll charge $120, $125 a foot.
When you're coming off of these, as you put it, the worst Art Basel for restaurants in 5 years, this amazing article from journalist Eric Barton for Airmail, Graydon Carter's post-Vanity Fair project. The title is The New Swampland. Says since 2020, branches of restaurants from New York, Los Angeles, London, Mexico City, and elsewhere have opened in Miami, but the bubble may be ready to pop. The headline, The New Swampland, of course, kind of compares restaurants in Miami to the modern day version of unsuspecting people who came to Florida a century ago and bought swampland that was marketed as great real estate to build homes and businesses and things. My favorite quote is from Franco Yanelli, an Argentinian restaurant owner who moved to Miami in the height of the lockdown of the COVID pandemic. Quote, "A lot of people told me, beware, it's really tough to get construction done in this city. And I thought, I'm from a third world country. What could be worse than that? As the author wrote, what Yanelli found was a city that lived up to its notorious reputation. You, of course, are, as far as I'm concerned, responsible for this article because you're not only quoted in it, but it's like it kind of borrows your thesis and exports it on an international platform. I want to know where some of the biggest pushback has come for you. We talked about it a little bit at the beginning, but I know it's hard in this town to tell the truth, especially if you're a realtor, you know, or you're in the facade business. You are in the fake it till you make it or fake it till you don't make it industry. So what has been some of the harshest criticism that you've received? And has it been because you're lying or is it because you're telling the truth?
It's been, there definitely hasn't been good. I've gotten a lot of support from the community, and you know what, at the end of the day, that's really who I fucking care about. I don't care about developers or landlords or, yes, it's going to hurt me financially, but I think that a lot of them are afraid that, you know what, I'm okay financially. So whatever happens, they can't really hurt me. And I think that's really, or buy me, that's really what they're most scared of right now, is that I can go out and tell the truth and, I'm not going to get fired. Nobody's going to do shit. So it is what it is.
I don't know that I care so much about the Northeasterners, these carpetbaggers who come down here and spend a bunch of money and wind up getting screwed. I mean, I care about the local entrepreneurs and the people who want to build local businesses so that they can, create jobs and opportunity for their families and other locals. But those seem to be the people that are suffering the most. Is that right?
That is 100% right. And for me, those are actually the people I try to protect. So even though I've cost myself and I get criticized by a lot of brokers and agents, the fact that, why are you doing it? Why are you even doing this for a living if you're just going to keep talking people out of deals? Because the way I believe that, it's always better to be a good person, and B, it's about educating the community for them not to make mistakes of spending every hard-earned dollar they've raised or, gotten in, for investment to open their dream, and they're never going to open. So unfortunately, I've seen too much of that, and I'm just sick and tired of it.
Felix, I understand this isn't just entrepreneurs who are trying to open restaurants, but people who are trying to take advantage of the visa program here in the United States that are disrupting this market in not a good way.
A lot of and the grease trap, but a lot of what's going on is actually the investor visa investors that are coming in, and that's what's driving up the cost on the local operators, because those guys are willing to pay top market rent. So all you need is one comp from those guys, and everybody else's rent doubles, triples, quadruples when their market price comes up.
So let me ask you about that. So this is a hustle that is not really related to the restaurant business, right? How does this work?
So there's obviously Miami is a very investor visa friendly city. So they have a lot of what they call representatives or consulting agencies from countries like Argentina, Venezuela, Colombia. And what they do is they buy businesses. Restaurants are probably the easiest. And they put in all their own people. They have to use these consulting companies, contractors, and interior designers and lawyers, and they may or may not still open. But what they do is they wind up paying a premium price because they don't have financials in the United States. So they'll just pay a higher rent and put more of a higher deposit. And what a lot of landlords will do is they'll take that one comp and then raise the rent on everybody else around them, because that's all they need is one market comp that a restaurant is paying you X. So they, all the developers will raise the prices on the rent. So that's where the problem comes in.
So not unlike what we've seen with the housing market as well, the sort of foreign and cash investment from people who may not even be living in these homes, but are rather investing in them, raising the value, or raising the prices, I should say, of all of the surrounding homes in the market. It's that same idea?
That's 100% right. And that's, I think, where we're getting the most amount of pushback from developers. I'm getting cease and desists from owners and landlords for telling the truth.
Cease and desist telling the truth.
Yeah, for ruining their narrative.
Well, all you're doing, though, is talking about the numbers in your own business, right? That's all. These are just data points that you have from your own experience.
Right. And what will hurt them even more is if I actually, now I would never put a restaurant that's closing on blast ever until they make it public. But if I ever was forced to show the numbers of the restaurants who are actually closing or are interested in selling their business, I think people would be a lot more worried.
Last thing, so we're clear, though, what is this visa hustle, though? How do the visas come into play?
So visa hustle comes in. These guys, if you've noticed, especially over the last couple of years, all the mediocre restaurants that have been opening. Maybe they have an Italian sounding name, but they don't serve Italian food. And what they do is they'll buy 51% of an existing business, show that they have employees, show that they have an actual business. They get their visa and they put their cousin in the kitchen, wait for the place to fall apart. And then the landlord takes it back, and then the new guy comes in and who will have to pay the $130, $200 a foot that the landlord is now asking for. So they have no interest in the actual restaurant business. And that's what really pisses me off.
I love this town!
Felix Bendersky, founder of F&B Hospitality Brokerage. Find him on Instagram at F&B Miami. Thanks so much for being here.
Thanks, brother.
It happened during the summer of protest in the Black Lives Matter movement, May 31st, 2020. During a demonstration in downtown Fort Lauderdale, Latoya Ratlieff was shot in the face with a rubber bullet.
Officers targeted demonstrators who were peacefully protesting after the killing of George Floyd. The Fort Lauderdale Police Department has since acknowledged that Ratlieff did nothing wrong and was a victim.
She has filed a federal lawsuit saying her civil rights were violated.
He was not acting in self-defense. He was not acting in the defense of others. He was using tear gas and rubber bullets to disperse a crowd of peaceful demonstrators without any warning.
Latoya Ratlieff is the great niece of famed civil and women's rights activist Fannie Lou Hamer. She was attending this peaceful protest in downtown Fort Lauderdale in what was a summer of protests throughout the country after the murder of George Floyd in 2020. What happened at this particular event was that an officer by the name of Styliani Hayes, she radioed in that she was in some form of distress, that her unmarked vehicle was being surrounded, that there were protesters who were jumping and stomping on top of the vehicle, that she was frightened and trapped. And as a result, without warning, effectively a SWAT team, a militia of Fort Lauderdale police officers show up, begin firing tear gas and indiscriminately firing rubber bullets into the smoke, into the crowd. There is video of officers battering peaceful protesters who were kneeling on their knees on the ground with their hands in the air. And what it turns out as a result of this lawsuit that Latoya has filed, and in a new report in the Miami Herald by Sarah Blasky, it says, during a deposition taken under oath, the officer who made the initial distress call admitted she never actually saw anyone damaging her vehicle or jumping on the trunk as described in not only her incident report, but her radio call, this frantic radio call. And a forensic analysis of synchronized video and audio from the scene shows no evidence that protesters were surrounding the vehicle as the officer reported while she radioed for backup.
Send me a few more units, please. We're starting to surround my car.
All right, on 1 Avenue? Yes, I need to know where you're at. Are you on?
Some units, please.
Where are you, on 1 Avenue?
2nd Street, I'm completely surrounded.
All right.
Ooh.
All right.
To jump on my car, send me units.
All right, make it out to 2.
They're in route.
We're all coming 97.
All right, 10-4. Where's she at on 2 Street so we know?
Yeah, goes around.
In the chaos that ensued as a result of that false report by Officer Hayes, Latoya Ratlieff was shot in the face with a rubber bullet, fracturing her eye socket and causing some ongoing, if not permanent, health concerns and damage. Latoya is with us now. Latoya, first off, I know it's been a number of years, but how are you feeling?
That's kind of tough. I kind of feel like I live in like this kind of perpetual state of like, I don't have closure. I don't really have an answer. And the more I find out, the more I realize that what happened to me was just completely unjustified. So I don't know. I kind of take it day by day. It's frustrating. And I don't really know. It's a process, honestly.
And it feels like there's been sort of mounting injustices. I mean, right out of the gate here, it seemed pretty obvious from the video and photographs that we had. This was a very well-covered event by the press, by the protesters themselves who were live streaming a lot of this. This was pretty tame and quiet until the police showed up and started firing tear gas and rubber bullets into the crowd. It was only then that I think the protesters kind of reacted, throwing water bottles or things like that. But immediately, then Police Chief Rick Maglione, the Fort Lauderdale Mayor, Dean Trentalis, started lying immediately in a cover-up and perpetuating what we now know unequivocally to be a lie, because the police officer has now said under oath that she lied. But I feel like we've known this the entire time. So is there any sense of vindication yet here that now that the police officer was forced to admit under oath that she completely fabricated what eventually became the justification for this, for this use of force against you and your fellow protesters?
Vindication is such a tough word, simply because, this is going to be 4 years that this happened as of Thursday. And I still don't have answers. I'm still struggling with what happened. There are still people that were impacted, that were tear gassed as well, that were shot at rubber bullets, because there's a host of videos of other officers celebrating after actually shooting indiscriminately at protesters. And there isn't any resolution at this point. And for it to have waited for 4 years for this information to be revealed, for the police to be aware of this information, specifically Maglione was aware of, you had to be aware of this information because this video was readily available to you. And now, how many years have passed, and there are people that were hurt, but maybe they weren't hurt like me, that have been sitting at home thinking that what happened to them was justified. So vindication in a way is it doesn't happen until there's actual accountability that's made because of what the police did. Like, that's when that comes. That's when I feel vindicated. That's when I feel like, okay, something can come out of this. But for now, we're still kind of in limbo, because there's still so many people who are out there that were tear gassed, that their rights were violated, that don't have a voice, and that don't even know that they are able to pursue damages and pursue justice for what happened to them.
This officer, who in a deposition in your civil case has effectively admitted to lying, Styliani Hayes, I'm not entirely certain how to pronounce her name, but did she explain why she fabricated this claim? Because in my view, there could really only be two reasons here. Either she was manufacturing a justification for the use of force, which you can see clearly from the video is totally unnecessary and out of control based on the facts on the ground, or she was hallucinating. Maybe she was medicated. I don't want to speculate, but she seemed to see things and hear things and experience things that simply did not exist and did not occur.
That's a good question. And I can't really speak to her mental state and what kind of drew her to those conclusions and to make that call. But there's something is important to point out, is like you mentioned the actual police report, or the report that she made after what happened. And in the report, she described the protest as a riot from the get-go, that she was there to monitor the riot, that she was there to actively move people and create a safe environment for a riot. And when you think about the language like that and what that means when you say riot versus a demonstration versus a protest, it can potentially speak to the state of mind of what this police officer felt when she was coming out to that event, what she viewed people that were attending that event. And throughout the report, subsequently people are listed as protesters and as rioters. That's a very, very different terminology. And to use that interchangeably, that can speak to her state and what she actually viewed us as.
Well, in my opinion, her state is full of shit. So that's my view in both reading her report and obviously looking at the objective evidence that we have. And speaking of objective evidence, as I referenced earlier, there's been this kind of series of injustices or compounding injustice since that day 4 years ago. The officer, Detective Eliezer Ramos, who had fired that rubber bullet into your eye, he was cleared by internal affairs, by an initial investigator, in fact, who told you, I think, in a meeting that he was a cool guy and it must have been an accident. Is that how this internal affairs investigation began, really?
Yeah, that was a moment that is quite unforgettable. I mean, as many moments throughout this situation have been that the internal affairs officer basically said he was a good guy. And that was a moment for me, which to pretend like I went into this situation and went into the internal affairs investigation, truly believing that there was going to be this chance of accountability and acknowledgement of what happened to me. I didn't. I would be living in an insane world if I felt that. But giving an opportunity for them to do what was right, that moment just kind of solidified for me that this wasn't going to be an easy situation and that the Fort Lauderdale police weren't willing to actually be accountable and have transparency and be honest about what happened, because you don't get to decide because you know someone that when they do something that's wrong, when they clearly do something that violated my rights and actually hurt me, that, oh, he's a good guy, he didn't mean to do something. You don't know. You don't know what his intentions were. I don't know what his intentions were, but I know what happened. I know what I saw. And now as more information come out, I know that there wasn't even a justification for the way they respond to us to begin with.
Yeah, I would take that into a court of law. Oh, yeah, my client's a good guy. Innocent.
Yeah.
And this is day one, Roy. I mean, they're calling Latoya in to interview her for the guy who is charged with investigating this and getting to the bottom of this and finding out what actually occurred and what the intentions are telling you, oh, it's probably nothing. He didn't. I mean, and I believe that investigator was removed from the investigation in part because now that didn't stop him, the officer Eliezer Ramos, from being cleared of not doing anything wrong here in this case, but also there was another officer, the only officer so far charged in anything related to what happened that day, and it wasn't even what happened to Latoya. Stephen Poherence faced a misdemeanor charge because he shoved a 19-year-old woman, Jada Severance, who was literally, you see her on her knees with her hands in the air, doing nothing, not moving. He shoves her for no reason at all, other than he looks to me like some sort of rabid animal out of control if you watch that video footage. And he was acquitted by a jury, Roy. But here's what we learned about him. He had been cleared by internal affairs prior to this incident for using force 79 times in just 3.5 years on the force. He had drawn his firearm more than once a month on average since he was hired in October of 2016, when this happened in 2020. Major red flags that the Fort Lauderdale Police Department ignored. And the police chief at the time, Maglione, who had since been reassigned, not fired, but reassigned, he admitted that he covered up for bad cops in use of force investigations by only reviewing written police reports in which officers routinely lie and never watching body cam video. When they had body cam video, he never bothered watching it. He just trusted these police reports, which we know now from both the police report and the body cam footage of this officer Hayes, or just fucking lies. Sorry, Roy. I had to drop an F-bomb there.
I mean, come on, man. You could have just said it was bullshit and called it a
I
day.
already called it bullshit. I needed to double down, also magnify my profanity. Latoya, I want to give you the last word here. Has anyone from the city, the lying mayor, Dean Trentalis, the lying police chief, ex-police chief Rick Maglione, I don't know about who the new police chief is. I know there was an interim police chief for a minute. Has anybody apologized to you? They've acknowledged that you did nothing wrong. This was unjustifiable in every conceivable way, even when they thought that this lying cop Hayes was legitimately had legitimately witnessed some sort of unrest on her car. But has anybody from Fort Lauderdale reached out to you to apologize for the injury and injustice that was done to you?
So apparently, Mayor Gonzalez said that he called me. I don't have record of that call. I do have record of him saying multiple times that I shouldn't have been out there. The only individual that actually reached out to me that I sat down and I spoke with, I mean, eventually we had a meeting with the city. There wasn't an apology during that meeting, but the only individual that actually apologized, that actually acknowledged what happened to me was wrong, is Ben Sorensen. He's the only person that really reached out to me and acknowledged that any of this shouldn't have happened. Other than that, I haven't heard from anyone else, and I doubt that I will ever.
Trentalis, I believe, is Greek for liar. So if he said he called, I don't know that I would necessarily believe that.
Probably spam.
Sure. I mean, it's just unbelievable. Like, here's the thing, Roy. Like, I know that there's such a thing as a justifiable use of force. I even know that there's such a thing perhaps as a justifiable use of deadly force, okay? But when you're dealing with police unions and politicians and police chiefs who have never seen an unjustifiable use of force, that is disingenuous and frightening. And here we've seen what is clearly, and what the city itself has already acknowledged, is an use of force. And now all the evidence is that any justification for it was based on an outright lie from a police officer in both a radio call and a report, where she was basically falsely reporting that she was in some kind of danger when she was in fact not. And no action has been taken, Roy. I don't see that this officer is under any kind of internal affairs investigation or has been suspended for this lie that resulted in the injury of innocent people and peaceful protesters. Protest is in the First Amendment of the Constitution. The press is in the First Amendment of the Constitution. I want you to search that document up, down, left, right, and sideways, Roy. You will never see the word police there. So how we have this class of people who have rights above and beyond the rest of us and above and beyond what is called for in the Constitution, based on what I am not certain. I mean, this is dangerous. People out there, so-called conservatives who believe in small government, who are concerned about the tyranny of their government, who fly "Don't tread on me" flags. There is no greater treading on you than firing a rubber bullet into the face of a peaceful protester on the streets of the United States of America. Latoya, if they don't, I will apologize to you for what happened to you. I wish you good physical health. I wish you good mental health. I can only imagine. I'm sorry we showed that clip earlier, which must be traumatic for you, but I think it's important for people to see and hear what it is that went on out there through no fault of your own. And thank you for being here. And I wish you good luck in the litigation.
Thank you so much. And if I could just say one more thing, I do hope that anyone that sees this podcast, that sees the report on Miami Herald, that you recognize now that what happened to you wasn't right and it wasn't justified, and that you have an ability to seek justice as well.
It's time once again for the Because Miami Wheel of Despair. I feel like Streeter needs to do like a theme song or something for it. No?
Yeah, that's a good idea. Theme song, The Wheel of Fortune.
I don't know.
I don't even know why you even played that card.
I don't know why that would be the theme song, but
we have biometric technology.
We do.
Roy, what is on the wheel this week?
Okay. I got this is proof that I have a list for you. The no shit report.
Wait a second, Roy. It looks like there's some highlighted on that list.
I used the back of a paper that is
okay.
Interview prep for Chris Winningham,
who
is rooting for the New York Rangers.
I thought that meant that maybe these topics are pre-selected or rigged in some way. So
no, that would be the other side.
The other side. Okay, all right. That shows that. Okay, yeah. Roy, what are the topics on the wheel?
The no shit reports.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we'll get to that eventually.
So a holdover from last week's wheel?
Yeah, a lot of holdovers. Cocaine Biscayne, that's Biscayne with a V.
The Biscayne Tower condo, yeah. A couple blocks from here, yeah.
Yeah. Tricky Vicki, who is a big fan of yours.
It's my girl. Your girl. Your girl or my girl?
How dare you, sir. And soul-crushing Commute. So we shall spin this thing and see what it lands on. And as you know, this is already predetermined. soul-crushing commute.
That is the headline. The Miami New Times this week. Miami's soul-crushing daily commute has gotten worse, study finds. Roy, how many days per year do you think that Miami commuters spend in traffic?
All
days. How many days per year amortized?
All of them.
All. Well, yes, that is a very good point, actually. I guess my question is the totality of traffic time from the course of the year.
Oh, over the course of a year, I would say maybe 9 days.
Oh, wow. If this is Price is Right rules, you are closest without going over. I would say 1 day, Bob, just to be careful. But it is, in fact, 236.86 hours or
Conversion.
approximately 10 full days.
I'm a winner.
So the typical daily commute in Miami is 58 minutes. That puts us within the top 25 for cities with the largest 10-year increase in commute times. Hialeah's average daily commute is about 57.4 minutes, which is 3 spots below Miami. So 10 full days a year Miamians spend sitting in traffic. And that's just commuting to work, by the way. That's not, wherever the hell else you're going sitting in traffic. So over 10 days a year.
Wow. Can you imagine having to do that 10 days a year out of your life and having to listen to this podcast while you're doing it?
No, actually. I absolutely cannot. And that is because
I cannot sanction your buffoonery.
Mm-hmm.
Spin the wheel, Roy.
It landed on Cocaine Biscayne.
So the Biscayne there's some luxury condo towers. They are, 2 or 3 blocks away from where we are right now, just due south.
Yeah.
And so what happened a couple days ago, Roy? Gunshots. They started flying through the windows on the 44th and 45th floor, striking and shattering hurricane impact glass. One bullet landed inches away. It hit the window inches away from a high chair. Fortunately, the kids were playing in another room of the house, but these were occupied dwellings getting hit with bullets. The police don't know what the hell happened. What they do think is that there was a shooter in another neighboring high-rise tower to the south that was firing, perhaps not targeting anybody over there, but just firing. I think that's pretty innovative, though, from a Grand Theft Auto perspective. I don't recall any high-rise to high-rise shootouts, but I think that's pretty incredible. Here's some really disturbing video and audio. Wait till you hear the first thing this woman says at the top.
I just moved from Chicago to get away from the crime and violence, and 5 minutes ago, I hear repetitive gunshots.
Peace of mind shattered.
Legitimately, this is scary as
for the residents of Biscayne Luxury Apartments South Tower in downtown Miami.
I could hear the gunshots.
After Miami police say shots were fired into occupied apartments just after 7 in the evening on Sunday. Some bullets into kitchen and living room windows, and no one knows where they came from.
I'm pretty sure it's on the carpet because there's some pieces up here too.
Vivian Oludun arrived home to a kitchen crime scene. She lives on the 45th floor and shared these photos of her shattered windows directly next to her baby's high chair. She posted this video on Instagram saying, "A shooter in downtown Miami put a bullet in my window, scattering hurricane impact glass onto my baby's high chair. Luckily, her kids were playing in another room." She finished the video by saying, "Miami, what kind of city do we want to be?"
Okay, so she moved from Chicago to Miami to avoid crime.
Yes, and then moved to downtown Miami and is now caught on the 44th floor of her condo in a shootout.
Huh. This building is becoming more and more like the Clevelander every day.
You feel like you're back on Ocean Drive, huh, Roy?
Yes, we're back, baby.
I miss Ocean Drive. I'm the one. I'm the only one. Shall we spin the wheel again, Roy?
Should we? It's your girl, Tricky Vicki.
It's my girl. Hey, Roy, you remember that time when she had that meltdown at the city commission meeting and she said,
"You are a vile little man."
How could I forget?
So I got a whole T-shirt about it and everything.
Yeah.
So I filed a bar.
You remind me every day.
Wait, do I remind you every day that I made a T-shirt or that I'm a vile little man?
That you made a T-shirt.
Okay, so it's my profile picture, I think. I think when I call you, it pops up with me with that T-shirt.
Exactly.
So, I filed a bar complaint against her for her violating rules with respect to decorum, professional behavior, etc. And she responded to that complaint. And her response was basically, I did it and I'm not sorry. Don't you know who I am? And fuck the First Amendment. That was her response.
Oh, okay. The last one set aside.
You don't want me to repeat that, Roy?
No, she said that while in session, mind you, talking about the quorum, calling you a vile little man, and she's not denying it.
No, I mean, how can she? There's video evidence of it, and she's not sorry for it. And she basically like, don't you know who I am? I'm like super important. I am the disgraced, fired Miami city attorney / mob lawyer, Tricky Vicki Mendez. And then she shits all over the First Amendment and the ability not only of the people to come to public comment and speak truth to power and confront peacefully their government and criticize it, but also one of the most fundamental rights that we have as journalists, which is to parody and satire our government, political cartoons. And she talks about how, like, we photoshopped her face onto Ursula, the villainess from Little Mermaid, that poor unfortunate soul, Tricky Vicki. But she criticizes, as I said, some of the most fundamental rights that we have to make fun of our government, to use cartoons and parody and satire to tell the truth about what's really happening, and she hates it. She thinks that she, as the second highest paid public official in the city of Miami, I hear one of, if not the highest paid city attorneys in the entire state of Florida, as a public official, that she is beyond reproach. She is above any kind of criticism or any kind of truth. It's an incredibly disturbing thing. And if you're a lawyer who's desperately searching for a new job, it's like a self-destructive thing to write. Like, something is deranged that prospective employers could read that she wrote. So I wrote back my own rebuttal to that response. And you know what's happened, Roy?
What's that, Billy?
The complaint has been escalated into a full investigation. And most complaints die in Tallahassee, and only about 1 out of 3 complaints advance to this stage, and it has advanced. So
they opened up an investigation. All they have to do is watch a video.
So we live to fight another day and to see where all of this goes. And in the meantime, Roy,
You are a vile little man.
And they can also listen and watch this show because you have the clip in question.
Hashtag VLM. Hashtag Vile Lives Matter. Roy, it was a hell of a week at Miami City Hall, as it always is.
How can I help?
And I will tell you, Joe Carollo and the horrible, terrible, no good, very bad day at Miami City Hall. That is what Elaine DeValle at politicalcortadito.com called last week's commission meeting, because everything that could go wrong for poor Commissioner Crazy Joe, a.k.a.
What I have is very small.
So everything went wrong for poor Joe. And I went to speak in public comment. Both of the issues that I spoke about passed 4-1. And I will tell you, he got called out by the public. He got called out by his fellow commissioners. He lost multiple votes, 4-1, on issues that were very important to him. He seemed tired, disoriented, defeated, and it really is starting to look like his 40-plus year reign of terror is finally coming to an end. Knock wood. And I got to tell you the truth, Roy, it was almost sad watching this once proud gladiator pathetically wobbling on his last legs. And some of those highlights, Roy, you see how sad. Almost was the key word there.
Yeah, you look very despondent.
It was almost sad.
This is not your little Twitter account, little Billy.
But all things considered, it was any bad day for Joe Carollo is a great day for the people of the city of Miami. And our Miami moment is a montage of some of the great events, great moments that happened last week in Miami City Hall. Go Panthers and Cocaines.
I'd like everyone here who's in favor of stopping the LED billboards to please stand and be recognized.
For the records, between 25 to 30 people.
Commissioner Carollo, I remember you when you were mayor and when you were a commissioner before, and you were nice, and I'm surprised.
You should be embarrassed that instead of listening to your residents, you're mocking them. You're not up there to speak. You're up there to listen. You shouldn't be mocking your residents. You should be embarrassed about that.
There's a motion to defer PC7.
Do I have a second? Crickets. Motion fails for lack of second.
Madam Chair, call the question.
Let's
call the question. We've been over this. I'm tired of this. Let's call the question.
Commissioner?
Let's call the question.
I have a right.
Enough of the dog and pony show. Let's call the question here. We're wasting time. We're wasting time. We had an agreement. That's why we had the same meetings. With all due respect. With all due respect. I'm out of order, but I'm getting tired of this.
You have to allow your colleague.
Yeah, but he talks a lot, and then we forget. He talks a lot, and then we forget. With all due respect.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Nay.
Motion carries.
Motion passes 4-1 with Commissioner Carollo voting no.